Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Wax and Lyrical with Mains and Duts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague, hoping his next deal is as big as Andrew looks, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
Well, if my next deal is as big as Andrew looks, you can be sure I'll still be going to Iceland.
Oh, just news hits everywhere, hot takes of news hits. Obviously, as we're recording now, Andrew Luck has just signed a deal through 2021. We're not sure of guarantees, but he will be the highest paid player in the NFL on a year-by-year basis. I don't think many people would argue that there's a reason for that, and probably that's because he's good. The Iceland thing is not news. England's a garbage at sport, namely football.
Do we think? I mean, I don't know much about the sweet and cold land that is Iceland. Do you think they have a discount supermarket called England?
You wouldn't go and buy something from England, would you, though? Just nipping round to England for a cornetto.
Nipping round to England, what did you get? Miserable, moaned at, racially abused, probably.
Wet.
Yeah.
Wet. Should we, before we get on the show, Neil, I'm interested in, on a percentage basis, players to manager, where you stand on the England-Iceland game.
50-50?
Yeah, I'm like 60-40 manager to players, but I think I'm with you. Like, this manager, I knew was not very good before he got the job, and someone gave him £3.5 million a year. And this is a quote of him. He once said to Roberto Carlos, who managed it Inter Milan. You probably don't remember, but Roberto Carlos played for Inter Milan. Many people don't, because he had a successful career at Real Madrid. Do you know how he got to Real Madrid? Because Roy Hodgson said he'd never make a left back and sold him. I'd like to state that my football club that I care about hired him after that. And
then you signed Paul effing Konchesky.
Paul Konchesky, Christian Poulsen, and Oleg Garbaras, like. And anybody who says, like, oh, this is the worst this team's ever been, unless you're talking about words and you don't know what you're talking about.
The thing with England as players is, and it comes down to this again, I've made this point before, playing for England is not the pinnacle of a footballer's career. So I don't think they should be paid for it. Then we'll get players who give a crap playing for their country. It's not like English cricket. International cricket is whether it's T20, whether it's Test cricket, whatever you want. Playing for your country is as high as you can go, and it's probably the same in rugby as well. Obviously they have a Champions League, but it's not as big around the world. English football is all about the product. It's a fantastic. Apparently we're told it's a fantastic product, the English Premier League. Yeah, but it's not very good, and it doesn't breed very, very good players.
It doesn't. But we also, I think, this week, given what's happened in our country, I'm using R in inverted commas now, as I'm not sure it is anymore, is that the media paint pictures and do things that they knock things up so they can smash them down. And this team has always been okay. It's okay, poorly managed, with players in poor positions, playing like Daniel Sturridge right wing. Well, what are you doing? Like, Raheem Sterling, who I know you hate, it's fine. I think has the potential to be a good player, but is not a good player right now, so shouldn't be playing. You tell me your best player is Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker cannot defend. He's garbage. Like he can't defend. Like, the same players on the team who shouldn't be in the team.
The best thing I saw, obviously there's been controversy about Harry Kane taking the set pieces. Someone, obviously, this is a bit of local knowledge. Harry Kane takes the M62 when the 57 would have been better.
I think you're right, Dutton. I think you're right. And that is local knowledge to its purest form. Let's get on with the show, Dutton. Usual stuff. We've got Weird World. We're going to do an homage to influential coaches, as the world lost 2 in this matter of hours. Yesterday, screw 2016, we're getting bored of this now.
Yeah.
This show's becoming some kind of obituary fest.
I want to punch this year in the dick.
I'd love to see that. 2016 just walks up to you and you just go, boom, right in the penis. Yeah. And then we've got the brilliant Mike Franciscovich from the NFL and Number Fire.
Matt even.
Matt, what did I say?
Mike.
I meant to call him Matt on the show. You got Matt talking about how difficult the choice was of picking the most successful baseball and American football franchises as his supporting teams.
Someone's got it.
And it wasn't us, Dutton. It wasn't us. So let's get on with the show, and let's get on with Weird World. You ever been stuck in traffic, Dutton?
Frequently. Not as much as you, but yeah.
Not as much as me. Sometimes these can be helped, right? And sometimes you're like, there's no way that I could do anything about this. And Huffington Post have nailed it. Cowboy on horseback causes traffic jam on New York City bridge. An 80-year-old urban cowboy, don't even know what that means. I literally don't know what that means.
It rhymes with bunt.
Was spotted on Monday as he made the grueling journey from New Jersey into New York City. It was a grueling journey in a car. Like so many weary travellers before him, Todd Doc Mishler and his trusty steed, I love that as a term for a horse, brushed up with authorities along their path. Police said that Mishler, wearing a white cowboy hat and a vest, I'm hoping he was wearing pants as well, caused a traffic jam on the bridge, according to the New York Daily News. Mishler was riding one horse and leading one other along. John, what's the strangest thing that's got you in a traffic jam?
It's hard to say. I mean, because most traffic jams I get stuck in, it's actually just behind rubberneckers. Obviously, you've been stuck with like cows crossing the motorway or something.
And that's what I was going to bring up to them. I have had a similar situation on the M40, trying to get home for a podcast, if I remember correctly, Dutton.
It may well have been.
I got stuck as cows got onto the motorway. I was stuck on that motorway for 4 hours. I wanted that farmer dead, and I wanted all those cows to become burgers. So I dread to think what the good people of New Jersey heading to New York think of Doc as he's riding his two horses across a bridge.
I want all cows to become burgers.
Can some become steaks? Yeah, let's do that. Dutton, this is brilliant. You ever been fired from a job, Dutton?
I don't want to comment on that.
Okay, it's fair enough. But when you were fired from that job that we won't talk about, were you ever evicted from your home at the same time?
No, I was not.
Well, Dutton, this is what's happened to Browser, the grey cat who inhabited the public library in Texas. The public library in White Settlement, Texas. Yes, that's really the name. For more than 5 years. Despite Browser being beloved by library workers and patrons, the White Settlement City Council voted that Browser had to go. Is it ironic that Browser's a black cat? You can't see a picture, but that's ironic, right?
I don't think ironic is the word we were looking for, was it?
I don't think there were any problem finding a home for Browser. Otherwise, Browser in the library, said Lillian Blackburn, president of Friends of White Settlement. Okay, noting, I didn't read the name of the place.
Is this actually happening? Are you actually reading these words?
These are real words on HuffingtonPost.com. Noting that multiple people have already offered to take him, but he will not have a home like this. The library originally adopted Browser from the animal shelter to help it deal with a mouse problem. I'm assuming that was a black mouse problem. Blackburn told the Huffington Post, but the animal soon became a quirky fixture of the place, with the uncanny ability to detect if someone is a cat person. He's there if you want him to be there, and if you don't want him to be touched, he doesn't go anywhere near you. I love it.
Is this the time to point out that I'm not a big cat fan?
I'm not a big cat fan, Dutton, but I'm not sure somewhere called White Settlement should be evicting black cats from a place of education. This happened in America. It was called the 1960s. It was called the Civil Rights Movement. Yeah,
we're not allowed to criticise people for how they vote or name anything, because this is still a country that gave the world the name Boaty McBoatface.
Boaty McBoatface, correct Mundo.
And then they expected we'd make a sensible decision when it came to a referendum about the European Union.
We could do it.
Can I say, by the way, yeah, in other very weird news, but actually related to the NFL, have you seen that Johnny Manziel, troubled former Cleveland Browns quarterback, has said he's going to sober up from Friday?
Oh, that's like one of them badges your parents get. The diet starts tomorrow.
Yeah. So we expect this borderline alcoholic to start.
He's not borderline. He's not borderline.
It depends how big the border is. He's going to cut out booze. To quote, to paraphrase Jerry Rafferty, he's going to give up the booze and the one night stands on the 4th of July weekend.
But I just love the fact that it's like I'm going to do it on Friday because I'm really, really busy on Thursday.
Yeah, getting absolutely laced.
Oh, he's an idiot, and oh god, yeah. It's that I do feel sorry for him, but then again, it's kind of that story of George Best when he was like permanently drunk and he'd been kicked off Man U, and he was in the Ritz in London, and he had Miss World sleeping in his bed, and there was alcohol and money all in his room, and the porter comes in, he just looked at him and went, "Mr. Best, where did it all go wrong?"
The difference being that George Best was a wonderful footballer. I'm not entirely convinced that Mr. Manziel is or ever was.
Johnny Manziel was not a good professional American football player. However, he was an excellent college football player.
Tim Tebow. Move on.
Which is Tim Tebow. If you've got any weird world stories, me and Dutton want to hear about them. So just tweet us them. Neil's at ndutton13, I am at Main87, and we are combined at waxing_lyrical. We love them all. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are a little bit rude to be on the show, but we try and do it as much as we can.
Believe us, we read them anyway.
We do read them and usually laugh and text each other most of the time about how funny they are. So we move swiftly on, and sobering subject again. In the last 48 hours in America, two of the most famous and influential coaches in their respective sports passed away. Pat Summitt, who was a female college basketball coach. She coached the Tennessee Volunteers. She'd been battling dementia. She died age 64. And Buddy Ryan, famous for the 46 defence and punching Kevin McBride in the face, passed away also. You wrote about Buddy Ryan for NFL Girl UK. Give us your thoughts.
Well, Buddy Ryan basically, he was one of the first coaches that essentially, he didn't just look at it as you're an offense, I'm a defense, I'm going to stop you. He identified that if you can stop the quarterback, you stop the opposition completely. So when he was with the New York Jets in Super Bowl 3, when he was defensive line coach, he came up with all kinds of blitzers to stop Earl Morrall, and when he eventually came off the bench, Johnny Unitas in the Super Bowl. He then went to Minnesota and formed one of the great defenses, not called the Chicago Bears, the Purple People Eaters, again designed to kick the crap out of opposition quarterbacks. Then when he landed in Chicago and he came up with the notion for the 46 defense, we're not big X and O's people, we're not going to get into it, but it was a punishing, relentless defense designed to kick a quarterback's ass. And he wrote that in the 1993 Houston Oilers playbook. The quarterbacks are pompous, overpaid bastards and deserve to be punished. His defensive philosophy formed the game we have now. It brought about the death of the two running back offense because you couldn't have them, because you couldn't pass the ball, you couldn't run the ball. So you had to basically go to 3 receiver sets, make the tight end more a part of the passing game. He was an innovator who basically was combating the West Coast offense of the time and has led to this pass-happy league that we have now. And obviously, he has a more recent legacy in that his two sons are coaching the Buffalo Bills. But Buddy Ryan was one of a kind. I mean, his sons are similar, but they're not like him. I mean, after he punched Kevin Gilbride, he did say in an interview that week, that he'll have a job next year and Kevin Gilbride will be selling insurance. That's his co-worker. But he said that to a television reporter.
The ironic thing is that at that point, they were both innovators in their own right. Gilbride was seen as this amazing offensive coach, and Buddy Ryan was seen as this defensive genius. Always was. He always didn't like the offense. It's famous how much Ditka and him didn't get on when Ditka was the head coach and Ryan wasn't. Buddy Ryan as around a 500 record as a head coach. His issue mainly was the majority of his head coaching career he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's not an issue. It is an issue when he did it. So when he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, the head coaches in that division were Jimmy Johnson, Hall of Fame for me, Jimmy Johnson, Dallas Cowboys.
And Tom Landry.
And Tom Landry. Actual Hall of Famer Joe Gibbs. And actual Hall of Famer Bill Parcells. So he could be a great coach, but he had to play those 6 times a year. That's not going to be conducive to where you need to go. And in that period of time when he was a coach, I think it was from around 1990, right?
It was 87 to 91.
So 87 to 91, I think with the exception of Dallas, who won the year after, they won at least, the Giants and Redskins won.
Yeah, there's 3 Super Bowls, 2 for the Giants, 1 for... two for the Giants, 1 for Washington.
We won the year after. Then Cowboys won the 2 years after that. This is not an easy division. He was unlucky in that situation.
No. And his was, as I say, we come from the Chicago Bears. Chicago, all throughout their history, have got by with adequate offenses, but they've always loved their defenses. Mike Ditka did not hire Buddy Ryan. When George Halas, Papa Bear, fired Neil Armstrong, not that Neil Armstrong, it was one small step for man, one crap leap for the Bears. The Bears defenders co-signed a letter and sent it to George Halas saying, look, we know you want to make changes. Either promote Buddy Ryan or at least keep him. And when he announced that he was going to fire Armstrong, before he did, he turned up at practice on a golf cart, called the defence over and said, I got your letter, your coaches will be retained. Because he saw, Halas knew the importance of a coach that the players loved. George Halas, when he was a coach, his players didn't love him, they feared him, but they went with him because he was a winner. And that's what Buddy Ryan was able to help them become. But it started this trend, and obviously this has continued to an extent with Rex Ryan, of schisms between your team, between an offense that can't get the job done and a defense that keeps doing it, but it just has to do more and more. And I always mention there's 3 books that are quite similar. There's Collision Low Crosses, about the 2011 New York Jets, who were coached by
Rex Ryan.
There's Bringing the Heat by Mark Bowden, which is about the 1993 Philadelphia Eagles, which was the year after their head coach was
Buddy Ryan.
And there's also Next Man Up, which is about the 2004 Baltimore Ravens, when they was heavily expected to get to the Super Bowl, didn't even make the playoffs. One of their defensive coaches was Rex Ryan.
They're entertaining. They're great for the media. They're not always great for teams. But,
no.
But Buddy especially gave us the 46 defence and was on the coaching staff and was lifted on players' shoulders in what can be seen as one of the greatest teams in NFL history.
If you want another conspiracy of linking between them, one of the more famous games between the Ryan Eagles and the Cowboys was known as Bounty Bowl, when allegedly Buddy Ryan, put up rewards to knock the kicker, whose name escapes me, and Troy Aikman out the game. One of Buddy Ryan's defensive coaches that day was Jeff Fisher, who, when he became a head coach, one of his defensive coaches was Greg Williams, who in 2012, I think, got into a bit of trouble called Bountygate.
So excellent.
I'm not saying it's a link, but it's a link.
I'm not saying it's a link, but it is. If we move just quickly on to Pat Summitt, we're not basketball fans. So we're especially not college basketball fans. So we're especially not female college basketball fans. But this is a lady who, in a male-dominated area, coaching, even in the women's game, dominated the sport. Eight national titles with Tennessee, over 1,000 wins. She won an Olympic gold medal as a head coach as well in 1984. I look at it based on, I listen to a lot of American radio when I'm in work. So I listen to ESPN radio, whether it be Mike and Mike or Cooley and Kevin on Washington, or then I listen to Tony Cornaja podcasts, stuff like that. Buddy Ryan and Pat Summitt passed away the same day. Pat Summitt was the story in America based on who she was and what she'd done for an entire sport. Obviously, Buddy Ryan did something for defences and was an innovator, but this woman transcended that and was a sporting icon in the States. She made a sport popular that wasn't popular before. She allowed basically the WNBA, which is America's female basketball professional, is here today because of her. And a lot of the players in that league or have been through that league have gone through Tennessee, and a lot of people are very sad for her to go. Based on those two people, influential in different ways, they did it in different things. We thought, just quickly give a list of coaches who we see as influential. So for me, I'll go straight to football. A man I don't like at all, and that's Sir Alex Ferguson. But what cannot be denied with Alex Ferguson is his influence over the game when he was the manager. So first of all, when he's with Aberdeen, he takes Aberdeen, who are not Rangers and Celtic, let's be brutally honest. They dominated that league and won a European trophy. And out of that, he got the managers came out of that. Willie Miller, Alex McLeish, they became managers in the league. Moves to Manchester United, who hadn't won the league in 25 odd years. Eventually wins the league and then dominates the league for 20 years. You look at that team, look at the amount of people who are now managers or have been managers, who've attempted to be managers, who come from Ferguson. Mark Hughes, Steve Bruce, Phil Neville, Gary Neville, Ince, Keane, Steve McLaren was his assistant. Brian Kidd, attempted football manager, he was his assistant. Carlos Queiroz managed Real Madrid. He's so influential, and how the media deal with managers now and how managers deal with the media is very much led by how Sir Alex Ferguson did things. I despised him because I was a Liverpool fan, but you can't help but respect him.
Winner,
absolutely done.
It's really as simple as that. Someone who was going to win and didn't give two stuffs what you thought about him. I mean, I imagine that if we were to actually speak to him now, we'd probably quite like him. But unfortunately, you're never going to be able to shake the mentality of it's this one who's... I mean, this fellow was playing mind games in the late 80s. So it didn't start with the Keegan meltdown. He'd been doing it for nearly 10 years by Keegan.
Absolutely. Tony, who's your one you want to talk about?
Paul Brown. Now, I mentioned Paul Brown an awful lot because so much of the modern NFL can be traced back to this man. I mean, he'd been a college coach with the Ohio State University. When the the Cleveland team held a poll to name their team, it was named after him before he'd even played a game. I mean, he brought in one of the most pointless things we all say now, and it's one of the most arbitrary things in football scouting and evaluation. It's the 40-yard dash time. He invented that because he reckoned, or he found out, the average punt went 40 yards. So he wanted to know how fast his special teamers could get down the field. Unfortunately, now it's used for, offensive linemen, for quarterbacks, for people who, let's be honest, if you're drafting that high, you don't want them chasing punts. He was the first person to use film study. He filmed his own practice so he could go and watch it and then make corrections the next day. He was one of the first people to use headset technology illegally at the time, but eventually became accepted. He was just, he was the godfather of the modern NFL. And again, we talk about coaching trees. They all start with Paul Brown. They may branch off, but they all start with Paul Brown.
We started the show with Roy Hodgson. We get onto these coaches. We shouldn't we know most of the time it's a player's game, and we understand that, and that's for all sports. But if you haven't got the right coach in place to motivate the players, to get them in the right positions, to get them to do things, your team will not function. You could have exactly the same players, and it'll either will or won't work.
Well, why is it called a coach? Because it gets you to where you need to go. Good coaches will get you in the places, as Belichick always says, the best place for you to be successful. Because ultimately, if you're successful, they're successful. They're not doing this out of charity, but the ability to get the best, to say to someone, I want you to do this, and then not to turn around to you and say, F you, I'll do what I want. Very few people can do it well. We've both played sports to various degrees. I've seen I've got a couple of coaching badges. I've seen some bad coaches, because bad coaches think they have to do something. Good coaches realise sometimes they don't have to do anything. And ultimately, that's the start from coaching. You see what you've got, and you take what you've got and make it successful, and you get people to go along with you. And that's what the likes of Summitt, Buddy Ryan, Paul Brown, Sir Alex Ferguson. I mean, Ferguson did it with, how many times did he turn over that squad? But the message didn't get old.
You look at that squad when it finished, the Ferguson one. You look at that team when he left. They won the league that year, by the way. They were as an absolutely awful set of footballers. But they won because they had Sir Alex Ferguson. And teams' mentality, almost when they went to Old Trafford, was they were already getting beat. And they couldn't get past that mentality. And that's all down to the coach. Done. That's just talking about coaches. But let's talk some fantasy NFL. Let's talk a bit about how you become a Steelers and a Yankees fan with Matt Franciscovich of NFL Fantasy and Number Fire.
Well done.
And joining us now on Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Duts, it's Matt Franciscovich, Associate Editor for NFL Fantasy and also writer for Number Fire. Matt, how are we today?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
We're good. We're wet though because it's absolutely rubbish weather here in the UK. Obviously, as most of the NFL guys, you're in LA, so do you want to let everybody know how sunny it is today?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's sunny and about 80 degrees, so can't complain here.
It's a tough life. I don't know why everyone we interview from NFL.com is so happy, Neil.
Can't imagine. It can't be talking to us, to be honest.
So Matt, we've get straight on with it. We've done a bit of research into fandom. You're from New York, so
yes,
we'll allow you the Yankees fan. But we've noticed that you're a Steelers fan. So how do you cope with the long 45 minutes of sporting misery that you probably had in your life?
Well, I mean, the Yankees haven't been so hot the last few years, but the Steelers, I've been able to enjoy a couple Steelers championships, in the last 10 years or so. So
how did you, I suppose, not support the Giants and dodge the Jets when coming from
my dad is a lifetime Jets fan, so I don't know. I just liked watching Cordell Stewart when I was a kid. He kind of hooked me. He hooked me into football. He was just fun to watch and an interesting player, and that's what got hooked me on the Steelers. And then it helped that they were good. So
yeah, that'll usually do it.
That helps. Yeah.
I watched the NFL from about 1992, Dutton from about 2000, Dutton?
2000, yeah.
And at that point, we watched it together, and we were allowed to pick Neil's team. And at that year, there was a choice really between, say, the Philadelphia Eagles or the Cleveland Browns. And luckily for Dutton, we gave him Philadelphia. They picked Donovan McNabb that year, and then the rest was history, so to speak. And we constantly curse ourselves that we didn't give him the Browns.
But at least if I'd had the Browns, the hope wouldn't have killed me, which is what the Eagles do to me.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
These 4 lost championship games and a lost Super Bowl. It sucks.
No one's got any sympathy. What's the next question?
No one cares. obviously, Matt, you and I were talking last week on the Twitter about what has got to happen for people to get on board the Jay Ajayi train, and why is he looked upon so negatively?
I don't know why there's such a negative connotation with him. I think it has to do with the combination of his knee injury that kind of capped his draft value coming out of college. That was a major concern with his knee, his degenerative knee issue. And I think the other thing, at least heading into this year, is the fact that we don't have a lot to work with in terms of seeing him play at the NFL level. He only got a limited amount of work last year behind Lamar Miller. And I think that because he didn't really get a lot of run till late in the season, he's just kind of not on a lot of people's radar. And then there's this other thing that came out this summer, that during OTAs he was having trouble catching passes, which I think little things like that, like drops in OTAs and minicamp at this point in the season because there's nothing else going on, things like that get overblown. And people forget he caught 50 passes in his last year in college, and he has 3-down back skills. And I think it's just people are just kind of reaching for stuff, and it's just an overblown little news blurb.
I mean, the writers' composite rankings at Rotoviz, where I do some scribbling, we've got him down. We're projecting him to be the running back 17. And he's going around the likes of, we're projecting him ahead of the likes of fantasy darlings like Duke Johnson and Giovanni Bernard. I mean, do you think that's a realistic place that he could be looking at, assuming he does get a 3-down workload, or are we being too negative on him?
I think he has the potential to be maybe between like a top 10 and top 15 guy if he can stay healthy and he does get the 3-down work. The only guy behind him on the depth chart is rookie Kenyon Drake, who they drafted this year. And I don't think, if Ajayi proves himself, and there's already been, Adam Gase has said he's already separated himself from the rest of the guys on the roster. I think if he proves himself early, he's going to prove that he can handle a workhorse type load. And, the sky's kind of the limit with that offense under Adam Gase.
Is it the fact that, obviously it's a new offense, it's a new head coach, but do you think maybe there are some question marks because it's Miami and it's a franchise that has, dysfunctionality baked right into it, that it's hard to really trust them?
That's definitely part of it. I feel like for the last couple of years, every offseason, the Dolphins have been hyped. Oh, their offense is going to be great. They have Ryan Tannehill is making the next step. He's finally, progressing, and it just hasn't happened. And they've flopped year after year after year. The same kind of thing happened with Lamar Miller coming out of college. Everyone thought, I think it was 2012 was going to be his year, and then 2013, no, and then 2014, no, and then finally he kind of broke out last year. But yeah, the whole stigma that the Dolphins offense brings in the last few years definitely also has something to do with it. But I think Ajayi is one of those guys who, the zero running back strategy is kind of big this year for drafts. I think he's one of those guys where if you don't get a running back in the first 3, 4, 5 rounds, and you scoop Ajayi maybe as your RB1, hoping for upside, that you're going to be happy with that pick. And I think he has potential to do really good things. So.
Makes note on pads about picking Ajayi 1. Matt, you recently wrote about more second-year running backs. Can you tell us which ones we should target and which ones we should ignore? I asked,
sure.
As a Washington fan, I need to
right.
understand where we're going to go with Matt Jones.
Right. He's another one of those guys who I feel like the fantasy community is split on. I wrote that just looking at his stats, like on paper from last year, there's really nothing good to take away from what he did. He was very inconsistent. He had a couple big games. That big game against the Rams, I think in week 2, and then not again until week 10 against the Saints. I think a lot of that had to do with some rookie growing pains as we see guys kind of adjusting to the NFL game. But I know I've read a lot of things about the Redskins coaching staff the running backs coach in Washington is really working with Matt Jones a lot this offseason to get him where he needs to be their feature back. And we saw flashes last year, but there was never that consistent good play. And I think if he can take the next step, be consistent, he'll get the upside for the volume is there, because the only guy behind him is Chris Thompson, who might get work on third downs. But if Matt Jones is the goal line back, the early down guy, I think he has potential to do great things, but there's a lot of risk involved because he's going around maybe, I think in the 5th round is his ADP right now. So it's kind of one of those unknowns where you just kind of have to take a leap of faith. And if you're on the train, you just go with it. And, if it flops, that could be your fantasy season right there.
Is there any others that we should focus more on? Anyone you're higher on than Matt Jones?
I think a lot of people are sleeping on Thomas Rawls because of his ankle injury, and that's a major concern. I think there was even severe enough that there was ligament damage in his ankle, which is pretty bad. But if you look at his tape from last year, he was amazing. He was like a mini Marshawn Lynch, and he probably learned some stuff from Lynch before he hung up his cleats. And I think Rawls is falling in drafts right now, at least. That might change come August if he can get out there for some training camp, which I don't know if he'll be ready. But I think that if he's healthy by week 1, Rawls can lead the Seahawks. They're a run-based offense, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. And he's got too much talent to ignore in the first maybe 4 rounds of your draft. So, if he slips to round 3 or 4 and you can pick up Rawls, that's going to be a great value, and I think you'll be really happy with that.
Sorry, Matt, is the fact that CJ Procise is pretty much universally expected to take over the third down work and get the passing work that used to be Marshawn Lynch's preserve, is that a worry? If someone was to target Thomas Rawls, that he's not going to get as much passing work as running backs past in Seattle have?
I think so. I think Rawls. I've written a lot about CJ Procise, and I really love his talent. People are a little hesitant on him because he only played 1 year in Notre Dame as the feature back. He was a converted slot receiver, which means he's got great hands. He's a good route runner. But I did write a piece for Numberfire about how Rawls did not get much of the passing work even when he was the feature back last year. And Procise could eat into some of that workload. Some people are projecting Procise to take over the lead role, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think if Rawls is healthy and he can prove that he's healthy, he'll be their guy, and Procise will be limited to third down work, which will be valuable, but as later in the draft and in PPR leagues, I don't think Procise is going to be a top 20 kind of guy.
Are there any other running backs you can think of before I so rudely interrupted you?
No, I'm all set. I think, actually, I just want to say one quick thing about Melvin Gordon. He has gotten a lot of hate this year. People seem to hate Melvin Gordon because he had such a bad year last year, but I've had an internal struggle within myself the last couple of weeks as I've written about these guys, and I finally came around to being on the Melvin Gordon hype train. I think he's going to bounce back. It's not like the guy forgot how to play football. He had over 2,000 yards and I think 29 touchdowns in his final year in college, which is just incredible. And I think he's going to be a great value pick. He's going in the 7th round right now. So if you can scoop him that late, I think you're going to be rewarded handsomely with Melvin Gordon this year.
Another piece that you're working on that you've been talking about on Twitter, I think you said it should be published anytime now. It's late round tight ends.
That's right.
I've seen a couple of vines that you've posted of the mythical Zach Miller. How much can owners as I always say, in the years gone by, it was always if you don't get Gronk, stream, at tight end. Whereas it seems this year there's potential to be a bit more consistent production. If you don't get Gronk, Kelsey, Zach Ertz, Gates, one of the big guns, is Miller someone that fantasy owners can trust much later in the draft?
I think he is, and just keep in mind the premise of this article is these late round values. I'm not talking about top guys that you are top 10 guys. Like, we know who those guys are, but the premise for this article is so we saw last year guys like Gary Barnidge, Jordan Reed, Tyler Eifert. They all broke out last year, and most of them weren't even drafted. So basically, what I'm trying to do here is find these late round guys who can become top 10 guys at the end of the year, but aren't being drafted as top 10 guys in August. And I think Zach Miller is one of those top candidates because of what we saw him do last year. He's athletically gifted. He can make amazing catches. He's got speed. He also has a background. He played quarterback in college, which he has said that helped him. It helps him when he's lining up on plays. He reads defenses like a quarterback. And it's also helped him build chemistry and learn timing with Jay Cutler, which is huge, especially if you're a guy that doesn't have a major role in the offense. Like, when you get your limited chances, you want to capitalize on them. And the other thing that Miller has going for him is Martellus Bennett is gone. He's now in New England. So Miller's the number one guy, and we don't know, other than Alshon Jeffrey, like Kevin White, who was a rookie last year and didn't play a single snap because of an injury. People are hyping Kevin White as this big thing, but he's an unknown. We don't really know what his role is going to be. We don't know if he's going to be successful. So there's Jeffrey, there's Kevin White, and then there's Zach Miller, and those are going to be the top pass catchers in Chicago's offense.
Would you?
An interesting name, Matt, and that's where Martellus Bennett from, who's now at New England. Obviously, right. He's with Gronk. Is he fancy? Are we expecting as viable fantasy stats as a previous tight end who we try not to name on the podcast, he used to play for New England, or will Gronk get the majority and he'll kind of be more blocking and almost not used in the offense to get Gronk more space?
Right. I mean, Gronk is the primary guy there. We're not going to take anything away from him. But I think what the Patriots, my guess of what the Patriots' plan is going to be is, Gronk warrants double coverage pretty much every time he's out there. And I think he'll attract double coverages, which could leave Martellus Bennett, if not open, mismatched on, a smaller secondary type defender, which could lead to a lot more targets and opportunities if Brady can find him in single coverage or, open underneath in a zone coverage. So I think it's going to be that double tight end attack. And Bennett could provide value, but it's not going to be anything near what we expect from a Gronk.
My last question, Matt. You I think you tweeted earlier about how deserving Doug Baldwin was of his contract.
Yes.
So Doug Baldwin's got his new contract. Kobe Fleener got a big contract with the Saints. Correct. We found out just before we came on that Andrew Luck has also got paid. Is it really, really good to go to Stanford to get that, the big second contract? I mean, you'd assume if you can go to Stanford anyway, you're probably quite privileged anyway. But then straight out the gate, you're going to get a multi-million second year, or third contract in Baldwin's case.
Right. I guess it pays off to be really smart, even if you're an athlete. I guess that's funny. Baldwin was undrafted, so I mean, hey, more power to him for proving he's worth millions of dollars.
See, our mistake is that we were neither intelligent or athletically gifted. So, but apart from that, we could have been knocking on the door at Stanford.
There you go.
We'd knock on the doors open, but I'm not sure anyone's going to answer.
No.
Matt, we really appreciate your time. We'll let you get back to sunny and 80 Los Angeles.
All right.
We try and work out how to build an ark here in the UK.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Stay dry, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
And that was a brilliant Matt Franciscovich there, bigging up the fact that he supports the Pittsburgh Steelers, but more importantly, bigging up Matt Jones of Washington.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's important. I mean, it's, as I say, you've gone from a running back who, as I discovered, of all running backs in the last 4 seasons who fumbled at least 10 times, he gets the most rushing yards between fumbles, to someone who couldn't keep his hands on the ball last year. So obviously that's a bit of a concern for Washington and for fantasy owners. But, you know, stay plucky.
Matt's on board, so am I, Dutton. Matt's on board, so am I. I like our offense. We'll see how good it is this season compared to last.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's about time you had something to smile about, isn't it?
Yes, Neil, yes. Dutton, well, that's it for the show. Weird World done. Coaches done. Matt done. Any final thoughts?
No. I mean, we're getting pretty close now to... We've tried to be wide-ranging in our topics, but I think we're going to start in the next few weeks. We're going to be a bit more NFL-heavy than we have been. But rest assured, I am in negotiations with guests from other fields, and while we still have a semblance of a Summitt, there's a few cricket-related guests I am trying to get on. So if you're not the biggest NFL fan in the world, sucks to be you, but bear with us. We will have some other stuff occasionally.
This has been Waxing Lyrical. Get used to it.